My family came, not my parents, not my sister, not even my best friend Matt, who's been like a brother to me since we were kids. Instead, they all went to my sister's engagement party. Yes, you read that right. My sister Alina scheduled her engagement party on the exact same day as my wedding, after knowing my date for 8 months, and my family chose her. It wasn't even subtle. The invites to her party went out 2 months before my wedding with save-the-date cards that were practically screaming for attention. Gold foil, fancy script, professional photos of her and her fiancé kissing on a rooftop at sunset. Meanwhile, when I sent my invitations, all I got back were short, awkward texts. My mom wrote, "We'll have to see if we can make it work, dear." My dad didn't even respond, just sent me a thumbs-up emoji 3 days later. I tried to tell myself I was overthinking it. Alina has always been the favorite, the golden child who could do no wrong. She got the bigger bedroom when we were kids, the car on her 16th birthday, and my parents' constant, unwavering attention. I was used to playing second fiddle, but I thought, naively, that my wedding would be different. 2 weeks before the big day, I called my mom to confirm their travel plans. She hesitated for a long moment before saying, "Eli, about the wedding. Your sister's engagement party is the same day. It's going to be difficult for us to attend both." I laughed at first, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. "So, you're not coming?" I asked, my voice cracking in a way I hated. "It's just that her future in-laws are flying in from Europe. It's such a rare opportunity to have everyone together," she said, as if that justified skipping my wedding entirely. "Mom, this is my wedding. My one wedding." She sighed like I was being unreasonable. "You'll understand when you have kids of your own. We just can't be in 2 places at once." I hung up without saying goodbye. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I didn't tell my fiancée Laya right away. I didn't want to ruin her excitement. But the next few days were a blur of awkward conversations with family members, each one regretfully, informing me they couldn't make it. Matt, my best man, called me the night before the wedding and said, "I'm really sorry, man. But Alina's party, it's kind of a big deal. I can't miss it." When the day came, I walked down the aisle with a smile plastered on my face, the kind you wear when you're trying to pretend everything's fine. Laya looked beautiful, like something out of a dream. Our friends filled the room with warmth and laughter, and I did my best to focus on them. But every time my eyes wandered toward the empty section of chairs, my chest tightened. The ceremony went off without a hitch, and for a few blissful moments, I forgot the hurt. It wasn't until the reception, just as we cut the cake, that reality came crashing back. My phone sitting on the table beside me lit up with a text from my mom. "We need to talk now." Before I could even process it, the screen filled with notifications, call after call, 52 missed calls in less than an hour. My hand froze around the cake knife. The laughter around me blurred into a low hum. Laya noticed the look on my face and whispered, "What's wrong?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the phone, my heart pounding, wondering what could possibly be so urgent that my mother, who hadn't shown up to my wedding, was suddenly desperate to reach me. And then the phone buzzed again, this time with a message that made my stomach drop. It was from my cousin Amelia, the one person in my family who occasionally slipped me bits of truth when the rest of them tried to keep me in the dark. Her message read, "You won't believe what's happening here. Call me when you can, but don't tell anyone I told you." That single line was enough to make my pulse quicken. I didn't reply right away. I knew if I did, she might get pulled into whatever storm was brewing. But the pit in my stomach told me it had something to do with Alina's engagement party. I slipped my phone into my pocket, trying not to let it ruin the moment, but my mind wouldn't stop spinning. I barely heard the DJ calling for our first dance. I held Laya close, swaying to the music. Yet all I could picture was my parents, my sister, and my so-called best friend, all gathered in some lavish hall, sipping champagne and smiling for photos, while I celebrated one of the most important days of my life without them. After the dance, I excused myself for a quick bathroom break and stepped outside into the cool night air. The music from the reception hall was muffled behind me. I finally called Amelia. She picked up on the first ring. "Elias, they're talking about you," she blurted, her voice low, like she was hiding in a closet. "They're saying you selfishly planned your wedding to compete with Alina's big day. Your mom's been telling people you did it on purpose." I froze. "What? That's insane. I announced my date months before she even got engaged." "I know," Amelia said quickly, "but they're making it sound like you wanted to upstage her. And get this, your dad's been telling her fiancé's family that you're not very close to the family anymore, so it's understandable that none of them came." My mouth went dry. They were rewriting the story while it was happening. "That's not all," she continued. "Matt's here. He's been going around saying he couldn't be your best man because you were being difficult about the guest list. Like, he's making it sound like you didn't even want him there." For a moment, I couldn't speak. Matt, the guy I'd shared every major milestone with, was standing at my sister's engagement party, trashing me to people I barely knew. Amelia hesitated before adding, "And your mom's calling you because, well, I don't know the whole thing, but apparently she needs you to fix something for Alina tonight. She said it's urgent. That's why she's been calling so much." The absurdity of it hit me like a slap. They skipped my wedding to go to my sister's engagement party, and now, in the middle of my reception, they needed me to fix something. For her. I wanted to hang up and walk back inside, pretend I'd never heard any of it. But I couldn't shake the anger clawing up my throat. My entire life, this was the pattern. They'd hurt me, make me the villain in their story, and then come to me when they needed something. And I'd always given in, because they were my family. But that night, standing outside in the dark with the faint sound of clinking glasses and laughter from two different celebrations miles apart, I felt something shift. I didn't tell Laya yet. I didn't want to ruin her night with my family's drama, but the weight of it sat heavy in my chest. When I walked back inside, the room was alive with music, friends were dancing, and for a brief moment, I let myself smile. But every so often, I'd feel my phone buzz again. Another call, another text. My mom's name flashing across the screen like a reminder that the people who should have been there for me had chosen someone else and still expected me to drop everything for them. The time the night ended, I had 68 missed calls, and the last voicemail they left made my hands curl into fists. When Laya and I finally got back to our hotel suite that night, we were exhausted. The kind of tired that comes from smiling for hours while your heart is quietly breaking. I was just about to toss my phone onto the dresser and forget about it until morning when I saw a new text from Amelia. It wasn't a paragraph this time. It was just a photo. I tapped it open, and my stomach turned. There, in crisp, high-definition clarity, was my sister Alina, standing at her engagement party wearing my late grandmother's wedding necklace. It wasn't just any piece of jewelry. It was the one heirloom I'd been promised since I was a teenager. My grandmother had pulled me aside when I was 19, just before she passed, and told me, "Eli, this is for the woman you marry. I want her to wear it on your wedding day." She even wrote it in her will. That necklace had been in a velvet box in my mother's safe for years. And when I asked about it a few months ago, Mom told me, "Oh, it's not in good condition anymore. Best not to use it." Now, here it was, glittering around Alina's neck, matching perfectly with her designer dress. And the worst part? In the background of the photo, I saw Matt, my best friend, smiling next to her, holding a glass of champagne. I just sat there staring at it, my pulse in my ears. Laya noticed my expression. "What is it?" she asked softly. I hesitated. "We'd Made a pact to keep the day about us, not my family's nonsense. But as I showed her the photo, her jaw tightened. That's the necklace your grandmother left for you? I nodded, my voice tight. My mom told me it was damaged. She lied. She gave it to Alina for her engagement party. Laya sank onto the bed, her hands curling in her lap. Eli, that's not just disrespectful, that's theft. As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. Another call from Mom. I let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. I put it on speaker. Her voice filled the room, cheerful at first, then sharp. Elias, I don't know why you're not answering. Alina had a little problem tonight. The caterer overbooked and we're short on a few things. We need you to call in a favor with that restaurant, you know, the one in town. And oh, by the way, I gave her grandma's necklace so she could wear something meaningful tonight. Don't make this a big deal, it's just a piece of jewelry. Call me back. I think that was the moment something in me truly snapped. It wasn't just the absence at my wedding. It wasn't just the gossip and the lies. It was that she could take something so deeply personal, something tied to my grandmother's memory, and hand it over to my sister like it was nothing. The weight of that betrayal sank in slowly, like ice spreading through my chest. All those years of swallowing my pride, of telling myself they didn't mean to hurt me, of making excuses. It hit me that they never saw me as worth protecting, not even on the most important day of my life. I sat there in silence for a long time, phone still in my hand before setting it down. My mind was already starting to move past the shock, past the hurt, and into something colder, sharper. This time I wasn't going to just let it go. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the hotel curtains, but it felt muted, like the world had dimmed a little. Laya was still asleep beside me, her hand curled loosely around mine, but my mind was far from the quiet warmth of that moment. I checked my phone. The barrage hadn't stopped. 93 missed calls now, 22 voicemails, dozens of texts, some from my mom, some from my dad, a few even from distant relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years. Most of them saying the same thing. You need to call your sister. Not congratulations on your wedding. Not, we're sorry we couldn't be. There, just orders, demands, guilt-laced messages that made my stomach twist. I finally played another voicemail. This one from Dad. His tone was clipped, almost annoyed. Elias, I don't know what's gotten into you, but ignoring your family on a night like this is childish. We were hoping you'd be more mature now that you're married. Call your mother. Back and do the right thing. The right thing. As if they had done the right thing by me. That day should have been filled with brunches, laughter, and retelling the best moments from the night before. Instead, I spent it with an ache in my chest and a fog in my mind. We went for a quiet breakfast at a little cafe near the water, and though Laya tried to keep the conversation light, I could see the way her eyes searched mine. Worried. When we got back to the hotel, I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the small overnight bag I'd packed for the wedding. Among the neatly folded clothes was an empty velvet box, my grandmother's necklace box. I'd brought it with me, thinking I'd surprise Laya with the real thing, but when my mom told me it was damaged, I tucked it away instead. Now it felt like a cruel reminder of just how little my family respected me. I didn't cry. I thought I might, but the tears didn't come. Instead, there was this hollow, gnawing space inside me where something used to be. And in that emptiness, tiny threads of thought began weaving together. Quiet, subtle, but persistent. I didn't tell Laya yet, but I started saving screenshots, every text from my parents, every photo Amelia sent me from that engagement party, every voicemail, especially the ones dripping with manipulation. I backed them up one by one into a folder on my laptop labeled simply, for later. That afternoon, while Laya took a nap, I sat in the hotel lobby with my laptop open, pretending to scroll through honeymoon destinations. In reality, I was looking up the exact terms of my grandmother's will, the one that specified the necklace was to be mine. I still had a scanned copy saved from years ago when I'd helped my grandmother with paperwork. And there it was in plain language. I leave my wedding necklace to my grandson, Elias Harper, to be given to his bride on the day of their wedding. It hit me then that what my mother had done wasn't just morally wrong, it was legally questionable. But I didn't slam the laptop shut or call anyone to confront them. I knew better. If I lashed out now, they'd spin it the same way they always did. Elias is overreacting. Elias is ungrateful. Elias is making a scene. So I smiled politely when the hotel staff congratulated us. I posted one carefully chosen wedding photo online, ignoring the dozens of texts from relatives asking why I wasn't addressing the situation. I kept my head down, outwardly calm, while inside something sharper and colder than I'd ever felt before was taking shape. They thought they'd gotten away with it. I was about to make sure they never saw it coming. When Laya and I returned from our short honeymoon a week later, my focus shifted. Instead of drowning in that hollow feeling, I poured myself into the things I could control, my marriage, my career, and the life we were building without my family's approval hanging over it. The first change was at work. I'd been a mid-level project manager at a fast-growing marketing firm. Good enough to be respected, but never loud enough to be noticed by the higher-ups. That changed quickly. I stayed late, volunteered for projects nobody wanted, and within 3 months, I landed a major client that boosted our department's revenue by nearly 40%. The CEO personally thanked me in front of the entire company and promoted me to director. With the new role came a significant salary increase, and I started investing seriously. I'd already been dabbling in real estate for a few years, but now I had the resources to buy not just 1, but 3 rental properties in prime areas. Within a year, the passive income from those alone rivaled my salary. Laya and I bought a house on the edge of the city, modern, sunlit, with a home office that overlooked the river. Our social circle grew too. Without the constant negativity from my family, there was more space for genuine friendships. We hosted dinner parties, weekend getaways, and charity events through Laya's art network. People we met saw us for who we really were. Not as the afterthought in a family hierarchy, but as a couple who had built something of their own. It was during one of those events, a fundraiser at our home, that I realized how far I'd come. Standing in the living room, glass of wine in hand, I overheard 2 guests talking about how Elias just seems to have it all together. I smiled to myself. They had no idea how much of that came from deciding to step back from the people who constantly tried to pull me down. Meanwhile, Amelia and I kept in touch quietly. She'd give me small updates here and there, how Alina's wedding planning was spiraling into chaos, how my parents were grumbling about how distant I'd become, and how Matt had started showing up at family gatherings acting like nothing had happened. I never engaged. I never defended myself. The silence worked in my favor. They had no fuel for their drama, no fresh outbursts to twist into their version of events. And all the while, I was documenting, saving receipts, photos, and every little piece of proof that painted the full picture of what they'd done. One afternoon, almost a year after my wedding, I got an email from a national business magazine. They wanted to feature me in a piece about young professionals who had achieved financial independence before 35. The feature came with a glossy photo shoot and an interview about my investments, career growth, and philanthropy. When it hit newsstands, I knew my family saw it. Amelia confirmed it. My mother apparently bought 3 copies just to see if it was really him. And still, I heard nothing from them. No congratulations, no acknowledgement, just silence. The kind that's heavy, with pride swallowing and quiet resentment. I wasn't looking for their approval anymore. But I knew deep down that my growing success was setting the stage for something bigger. Because the necklace, the lies, the missed wedding, they weren't forgotten. And the next move I was planning would make sure they never forgot them either. The Turning point came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, nearly 18 months after my wedding. I was at my desk reviewing contracts for a new commercial property I was buying when an email from Amelia popped into my inbox. The subject line was short but loaded. Thought you'd want to see this. Attached was a PDF, high-resolution scans, of the inventory list from my grandmother's estate, complete with signatures. The necklace was there, clear as day, with my name next to it as the designated inheritor. But that wasn't the part that caught my attention. At the bottom of the document was a set of signatures, including my mother's, and a note that read, "Released to Alina Harper for temporary use, June 15th. To be returned to rightful owner, temporary use." The date. June 15th was the night of Alina's engagement party, which meant my mother had, on paper, acknowledged that the necklace was mine, and now, nearly 2 years later, she had still not returned it. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. My pulse quickened. This wasn't just an emotional betrayal anymore. This was a written, legally binding acknowledgement. That same week, fate handed me another card. Through work, I had started collaborating with a high-profile event planner who specialized in luxury weddings and galas. Over coffee one afternoon, she casually mentioned that she had just booked a massive wedding for a client with ridiculous demands. Bride's name is Alina Harper. I kept my expression neutral, but my mind was racing. Alina's wedding was happening in 6 months, and from the sound of it, it was going to be big, lavish, expensive, and very, very public. The planner, not realizing the connection, went on about how the venue was an exclusive estate, the kind you had to book years in advance, and how the bride wanted everything perfect for the family image. Family image. It was almost too perfect. I now had 2 things: undeniable proof the necklace belonged to me, and insider knowledge about the single most important event of my sister's life. And unlike my wedding, her big day was going to be packed with extended family, business connections, and media coverage. I started making quiet moves. I hired a discreet but highly skilled attorney, not to send a lawsuit yet, but to review the will, the signed release, document, and every scrap of evidence I had saved since my wedding day. He confirmed what I suspected. I had a strong legal case to reclaim the necklace, and if I wanted to, I could pursue damages for wrongful withholding of inherited property. But I wasn't ready to file anything yet. Timing was everything. I also began attending more networking events in the city, subtly expanding my circle into areas I knew overlapped with my family's. Business leaders they admired, journalists who covered society weddings, even the owner of the estate where Alina's wedding was scheduled to take place. I never mentioned my connection to her. I just made sure I was in the right places, shaking the right hands, making the right impressions. By the time spring rolled around, I wasn't just in a better position than I'd ever been. I was in a position of quiet influence, and the people I was now connected to, they'd be at Alina's wedding. The final piece fell into place when Amelia called one night, her voice low. "Eli, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but Mom's been bragging about how she's keeping the necklace, safe for Alina to wear on her wedding day. She says you don't care about family traditions anymore, so it's better off with her." I thanked Amelia, hung up, and sat in silence for a long moment. The stage was set. The date was locked. The audience was guaranteed, and for the first time in years, I felt the old ache in my chest start to fade, replaced by a calm, steady certainty. When my move came, they wouldn't just lose the necklace. They'd lose the narrative they'd spent their whole lives building. The day of Alina's wedding dawned warm and bright with the kind of golden light photographers dream about. I woke early, not because I was invited, I wasn't, of course, but because the plan I'd been building for over a year was finally going into motion. I spent the morning in my home office going over the folder on my desk one last time. Inside were neatly organized documents: my grandmother's will, the signed temporary release paper with my mother's signature, dated photos of the necklace at Alina's engagement party, and correspondence from my attorney. The last page was the pièce de résistance, a formal letter addressed to the wedding's venue owner, the event planner, and most importantly, Alina herself. It was an official demand for the immediate return of the necklace to its rightful owner, citing legal clauses and including a clear warning about the consequences of non-compliance. The timing was critical. My attorney, a calm, polished man named Vincent, was scheduled to hand-deliver these documents at the venue at precisely 3:15 p.m., just as guests would be arriving and the pre-ceremony photos were beginning. But that was only part of it. In the weeks leading up to this day, I'd quietly tipped off a lifestyle journalist I'd befriended, someone known for covering high society events, but with a knack for sniffing out the drama beneath the glamour. I didn't tell her everything, just enough to pique her interest, that a certain heirloom necklace being worn today wasn't actually in the bride's possession legally. She'd done her own digging, confirming my name was attached to the inheritance record. She promised nothing, but I knew her type. If something happened at the wedding, she'd be ready. At exactly 3:17, my phone buzzed. It was Vincent. "It's done," he said simply. "And Elias, your sister didn't take it well." Through Amelia, who was texting me under the table from the bridesmaid's suite, I got the play-by-play. Apparently, Vincent's arrival with the documents had caused a ripple through the wedding staff. The event planner read the letter, went pale, and immediately pulled Alina aside. My mother tried to brush it off, saying it was just a misunderstanding. But when Vincent pointed to the signed release and the will, the planner quietly reminded them that hosting an event with disputed property could open the venue to liability, which meant, in no uncertain terms, Alina couldn't walk down the aisle wearing that necklace. Amelia's texts came rapid fire. She's screaming at Mom in the dressing room. Matt's trying to calm her down, but she just threw a hairbrush at him. Oh my God, they're taking the necklace off right now. The photographer just packed up the jewelry shots. She's in tears. I leaned back in my chair. Satisfied, I didn't post anything, I didn't gloat, I simply waited. By 6 p.m., the first whispers had already started circulating online. Grainy photos of a tense-looking bride without her signature piece, accompanied by vague captions about last-minute changes and family disagreements. The journalist I'd tipped off posted a short but loaded article the next morning. The missing heirloom, the quiet drama behind yesterday's lavish Harper wedding. The article didn't paint me as a villain, it didn't have to. It simply laid out the facts, quoted the will, and ended with the line: "The necklace is now back in the rightful possession of the grandson it was intended for." Which of course it was, resting in the velvet box on my desk where it had belonged all along. The calls from my parents started almost immediately after the article went live. I didn't answer, because this time, the silence was mine to give. The fallout was faster and harsher than I expected. By the end of that week, the story had been picked up by a couple of other local outlets. Nothing huge, but enough to make its way through the social circles my parents valued most. People who had always fawned over them at fundraisers suddenly had other plans. Alina's new in-laws, who had been proud to marry into what they thought was a polished, respectable family, were furious that her wedding had been tainted by public embarrassment. Amelia told me in hushed phone calls how the tension in their house had turned suffocating. My mom blamed my dad for not handling it quietly. My dad blamed my mom for signing the release document in the first place. Alina, meanwhile, had been trying to spin the narrative online, posting old photos of herself in the necklace from her engagement party, captioned with vague quotes about family meaning more than property. But the comments under her posts told a different story. People were asking uncomfortable questions. Some even tagged me, saying they were glad justice had been done. Matt, my so-called best friend, didn't escape unscathed either. He'd been one of Alina's loudest defenders after the engagement party, but the article made it clear he'd lied about my supposed guest list drama. Several mutual friends cut him off completely. When I ran into him months later at a networking event, he couldn't even make eye contact. The necklace stayed in my possession, exactly where it was meant to be. But it had become more than just an heirloom now. It was a symbol, a reminder that I didn't have to play by their rules anymore. I didn't need their approval, their invitations, or their version of the truth to define me. I never spoke to my parents again after that. Not because I was angry, though I was, but because I realized there was nothing left to say. They'd made their choice the day they skipped my wedding. All I'd done was make sure the world saw it for what it was. A year later, on our anniversary, Laya wore the necklace for the first time. We went out to dinner, just the two of us, in a quiet corner of the city. As the light caught the gold and diamonds, I thought of my grandmother, how she'd wanted this for me, and how it had taken nearly losing everything to finally claim it. Laya caught me looking at her and smiled. "Feels like it's home now, doesn't it?" I nodded, not needing to say more, because the truth was simple. They had taken themselves out of my life, and I had finally closed the door behind them, and I didn't just lock it. I threw away the key. Nobody from my family came to my wedding, not even my parents nor my best Reddit stories. My name is Jake, and if I had any doubts about where I stood in my family, they were erased the day I found out about the will. It wasn't even some dramatic, sit-down moment where my parents dropped the news themselves. No. I found out entirely by accident, by sheer dumb luck. It happened a few months ago when I was at their house, the same house I had been helping them pay for over the past 5 years. The mortgage, the occasional grocery runs, even fixing up things around the place. I was the one keeping it all together while my brother Eric did absolutely nothing, and when I say nothing, I mean nothing. No job, no responsibilities, just lounging around, waiting for life to hand him everything on a silver platter, which apparently my parents were all too happy to provide. That day I was helping my dad with some paperwork because, as usual, neither of them could be bothered to figure out how to do things themselves. He had asked me to skin some documents for him, a bunch of legal and financial stuff, and I didn't think twice about it until I saw it, a folder labeled estate plan and last will and testament sitting right there in the stack. Now, I don't normally snoop, but curiosity got the best of me. After all, I had been the one making sure they kept a roof over their heads. It wasn't exactly out of line to wonder how things were set up for the future, so I opened it. And that's when I saw the words that made my stomach drop. Everything, and I mean everything, was going to Eric the house, their savings, their assets. Not a single mention of me, except for some generic lines about loving both of their sons equally. Yeah, sure, equally. That's why they made sure their golden child would inherit everything, while the son actually keeping them afloat didn't even get a footnote. I felt like a fool here. I was bending over backward for them, making sure their bills got paid on time, making sure they never had to worry about food while they sat back and planned for a future where I got absolutely nothing. And Eric, he wasn't just lazy, he was entitled. He never lifted a finger to help them, never contributed a dime. But he had somehow convinced them that he deserved it all. Maybe because he was the younger son, maybe because they just always baby him, maybe because he knew exactly how to manipulate them. Whatever the reason, they had made their choice. I sat there staring at the paper, my hand shaking from a mix of rage and betrayal. How long had they planned this? Had they always intended for me to just be their free financial safety net with nothing in return? Did they ever even appreciate what I did for them? I had no idea how long I had been sitting there, but eventually my dad noticed I wasn't scanning anything. "Hey, Jake, what's taking so long?" he asked, walking back into the room. I didn't even bother to hide the will. I held it up and looked him dead in the eye. "So, this is how it is," I said, my voice unnervingly calm. "Everything to Eric after everything I've done for you." My dad's face went pale for a second, but then he sighed like I was some little kid throwing a tantrum. "Jake, it's not what you think," Really, I snapped. Because it looks pretty damn clear to me. I've been paying your mortgage, helping with groceries, fixing the house up while Eric does nothing, and you still decided he's the only one who matters. Dad looked uncomfortable, but instead of actually explaining himself, he just muttered, "It's complicated." That was it. No apology, no attempt to justify it. Beyond those two useless words, just a weak excuse and an expectant look, like he was waiting for me to drop it and go back to being their personal ATM. I should have walked out right then and there, but I wanted to hear it from both of them, so I called out for my mom when she came in and saw the will in my hands. Her reaction wasn't much better. She at least had the decency to look guilty, but the words that came out of her mouth made my blood boil. "Jake?" "Honey, you don't need the inheritance," she said gently, like she was doing me a favor. "You have a good job, you're independent, Eric." "Well, he struggles. We just want to make sure he's taken care of." That was the moment. Something inside me snapped. They weren't even in it. They knew exactly what they were doing, and in their minds, it was completely justified. They had spent years enabling Eric's laziness, and now they were planning to reward it by handing him everything while I got tossed aside like an afterthought. I took a deep breath, clenched my jaw, and set the wall down on the table. "Got it?" I said, my voice eerily calm, glad to know where we stand. Then I turned and walked out of the house, ignoring their protest. As I slammed the door behind me, they had made their decision. Now it was time for me to make mine. I didn't go back to their house after that. I didn't call. I didn't check in for the first time in years. I let them handle their own damn problems. If they needed something fixed, they could figure it out. If they needed groceries, they could find their own way to the store, and most importantly, if that mortgage bill showed up, well, I wasn't the one paying it anymore. The silence lasted about 2 weeks at first. I think they assumed I was just pouting and would come crawling back like always. Maybe they expected me to cool off and apologize for daring to question their decision. But when the days kept passing with no word from me, and more importantly, no financial help, you could practically feel the shift in their attitude. Then one afternoon, my phone buzzed. Dad texted the property. "Taxes are due, that was it?" No, he didn't text. "Hey, how have you been?" "No, sorry for what happened." "No, we really appreciate everything you've done." Just a cold, transactional message, as if I were still the walking bed they could tap into whenever they pleased. I stared at the screen for a moment, almost amused at how predictable they were. They really thought they could just demand money, like nothing had happened, that I'd keep playing my part as their financial safety net, even after they made it clear I was disposable. Clyde typed back, "I'm sure Eric will handle it since the house is his," and all it took exactly 5 minutes before my mom called. I let it ring. Then another text came through. Mom texted, "Jake, please don't be like this. We need to talk." Oh, now they wanted to talk now. That. Their bills were piling up and reality was finally slapping them in the face. I waited an hour before replying. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice now. You can live with it." I figured that would be the end of it for the day. I had made my stance crystal clear, and there wasn't a single part of me that felt guilty about it. But then Eric decided to chime in. His text came in late that evening, and the second I saw his name pop up on my phone, I knew it was going to be something obnoxious. Sure enough, when I opened it, I was greeted with pure entitlement. Eric texted, "Dude, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not a big deal. Just help them out, like you always do." I nearly laughed. Not a big deal. He was really acting like I had no right to be mad about this. I typed back, "No, I think you've got it covered since you're the favorite in all." Eric texted, "Oh my God, are you seriously mad about the will? Grow up, man. It's just money." Oh, now it was just money. Now that it was his to inherit it, suddenly didn't matter. That hypocrisy was astounding. I shot back, "Then you won't mind using some of that money to pay for the mortgage, right?" Silence. A few minutes later, My mom texted me again, this time going full guilt trip mode. Mom texted Jake, "We, your parents' family, takes care of each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're just abandoning us." I had to take a deep breath to stop myself from throwing my phone across the room, abandoning them. I had spent years making sure they never had to struggle, all while they coddled Eric and rewarded his laziness. And now that they finally had to deal with the consequences of their own decisions, I was the bad guy. "I wasn't falling for it, not this time," I responded. "You made it clear I wasn't part of the family when you left me out of the will. Now Eric can take care of you." I could imagine my mom gasping dramatically at that. She always had a flair for acting like the victim, even when she was the one in the wrong. A few minutes later, my dad sent another text, and this one had me seething. Dad texted, "We're not asking for much, just enough to cover the mortgage for a few more months until we figure things out. Don't be selfish." Selfish, the word, made my blood boil. I had been bailing them out for years, sacrificing my own money, time, and energy to make their lives easier. I had done everything a good son was supposed to do. And how did they repay me? By making sure I got nothing in return. And now, when I was finally standing up for myself, I was the selfish one. I clenched my jaw, took a deep breath, and typed back, "No, I'm done." Then I turned off my phone. They had made their choice. Now, they were going to live with it. The silence lasted. A day I knew my parents wouldn't give up that easily, but I wasn't expecting what happened next. The next morning, I woke up to a notification on my phone, a bank transfer request. I frowned, unlocking my phone to check it was from my mom. She had actually sent me a request for money like I was some ATM. The amount, $3,500, I stared at it in disbelief, half laughing at the audacity. No message, no explanation, just a cold, shameless demand for the exact amount they needed to cover their overdue mortgage. They weren't even asking any more. They were just assuming I'd cave. I declined it without hesitation. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Mom. I let it ring. Then came another text. Mom texted Jake, "I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it?" I took my time before replying, because it's not my responsibility. Try Eric, another call declined. Then another text. Mom texted, "We going to lose the house if you don't help us." Oh, now it was an emergency after all those years of treating me like a walking wallet. Now they were finally facing the consequences, I typed back. "Maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter." A few seconds later, Dad chimed in. "Dad, you're really going to let your parents become homeless?" That one actually made me laugh out loud. The manipulation was so blatant, it was almost funny. They weren't broke. They weren't about to be thrown on the streets. They just didn't want to dip into their own savings because they were so used to me covering everything. I ignored them for the rest of the day. That night, I got a text from Eric. "Dude, just send them the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is." I clenched my jaw. This entitled little prick really thought he could lecture me. I typed back, "You mean the same money you're inheriting? Why don't you send it?" His response came fast. Eric texted, "You know, I don't have that kind of cash right now." Oh, so now it was about affordability. He was perfectly fine with me draining my accounts. But the second it was his turn, suddenly he had nothing to offer. I replied, "Guess you better figure it out then, bro. You're the one they chose." No response. I went to bed feeling oddly at peace, like I had finally broken free from years of manipulation. But the next day things escalated. I was at work when I got a call from my apartment's front desk. "Hey, Jake, your parents are here. I nearly dropped my phone." What she hesitated before adding, "They're saying it's an emergency and that." "You won't answer their calls?" Oh my God, they showed up at my apartment just because I stopped paying their bills. I took a deep breath, pinching the bridge of my nose. "Please don't let them up. I'm not expecting them." There was an awkward pause. They're being kind of pushy." I clenched my jaw. "I don't care. They can leave." I hung up and immediately got a text from Mom. We downstairs opened the door. No question, no explanation, just another demand. I didn't reply. Another text from Mom. "Jake, we're not leaving until you talk to us." I exhaled sharply, standing up from my desk. They weren't going to back down, fine. I was about to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. I grabbed my keys and stormed downstairs. My blood boiling, I wasn't scared. Was furious the sheer audacity of these people to show up at my home. Uninvited, demanding money like I was their personal ATM, not even a phone call. First, not even a half-hearted apology, just a full-on ambush. They really thought they could just corner me into submission like I was some naive kid. I yanked the door open and there they were, Mom, Dad, and of course Eric all standing in a tight little formation, like they were about to stage a family intervention. Mom had her arms crossed her. Classic disappointed mother looked locked and loaded. Dad was standing stiff hands in his pockets, his expression a mix of frustration and entitlement. Like he couldn't believe I was actually making him do this in person, and Eric the little leech had the nerve to look bored like this whole situation was just mildly inconvenient for him, like he wasn't the reason any of this was happening. The moment Mom saw me, she went full theatrics, Jake. Finally, we need to talk. I leaned against the door, frame arms crossed. No, you need to leave. She blinked as if she physically couldn't comprehend what I just said. Excuse me, you heard me. My voice was calm, controlled but firm. You don't get to just show up at my apartment demanding money. That's insane. Dad let out a sharp scoff. Are you really going to let us lose the house over a petty grudge? Ian let out a cold laugh. Petty grudge? Oh, you mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills but not good enough to be in your will? That grudge, Mom gasped, clutching her chest like I had just slapped her. Jake, that's not fair. We only did what we thought was best for the family. I tilted my head. Best for the family? You mean best for Eric? Just say it. Silence along. Heavy. Silence. Eric, who had been weirdly quiet up until now, finally spoke up. Look, man, I don't even want to be involved in this. I didn't ask for anything. I turned to him, finally letting loose. No, you just sit back and take everything that's handed to you. You're 28 years old. Eric, get a damn job. His face turned red. Dude, what the hell? I took a step closer. You heard me. You want to inherit the house. Start acting like a homeowner. You want to be the golden child. Start paying their damn bills. I'm done being your personal bank. Eric looked away, suddenly very interested in the pavement. Mom took a deep breath, recalibrating her guilt trip. Jake, he's your brother. I nodded. Yep, and I've supported him longer than you ever have. Dad's face darkened. You're being selfish. I laughed, a real genuine laugh. Oh, that's rich coming from you. I gestured between them. You two decided that Eric deserved everything, and I deserved nothing, and now that it's time to pay the price for that choice, you're trying to manipulate me into fixing it for you. Not happening. Mom's voice sharpened. We thought you'd be mature about this. I raised an eyebrow. Mature? You mean quietly? Accept that I was betrayed and keep paying your bills because, let's be real, that's what you wanted. Dad stepped forward, trying to loom over me like he used to when I was a kid. Jake, we raised you. We fed you, clothed. You gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now. I looked him dead in the eye. I already did for years, and you repaid. Me by cutting me out. Mom's lip trembled. We thought you'd understand. I exhaled, shaking my head. Oh, I understand perfectly. I understand. Understand that I was never family to you, just a paycheck. Silence again. A suffocating, undeniable silence. I turned. To Eric, who was still pretending to be invisible. And you, what's your excuse? You had years to grow up, to get your life together, to contribute, but you didn't, because you knew they'd take care of you. And when they're gone, you just expected me to step in, huh? Eric finally snapped. What do you want me to say, man? I didn't ask for this. I nodded slowly, right? You didn't ask, you just benefited. His mouth opened, then closed. Nothing, he had nothing. Mom tried one last guilt trip. Jake, we're family. Family takes care of each other. I stared at her for a long moment before answering exactly. So why didn't you take care of me? She froze. No words, no comeback. Nothing. I let out a slow breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. We're done here. I turned and walked back inside, closing the door behind me before I even made it back to my couch. My phone buzzed, a new text from Dad. "Wow. After everything we've done for you, you're really going to abandon us," I smirked, typing back, "No, you abandoned me." I'm just finally accepting it. I hit send, then I blocked their numbers, but I had no idea that blocking them was only going to make things worse. It didn't take long for things to spiral out of control. Less than a day after I blocked them, I started seeing posts on Facebook. My parents had never been the most tech-savvy, but they sure knew how to air their grievances online, especially when they were feeling self-righteous at first. I thought it was just my parents being dramatic. I mean, that was their go-to-move, airing out family drama for everyone to see, but the longer I scrolled through their feeds, the more I realized this wasn't just about me, not helping with bills anymore. The posts were disguised as family love, but they were thinly veiled shots at me. Mom had posted something about how she didn't raise her son to be so selfish and how true family helps each other no matter what. A few of her friends commented along the lines of how I was a disappointment and so out of touch with what really matters. Then Dad chimed in with his own post, "So-called fam should never turn their back. When you need them most, we gave everything to our children, and this is how we're repaid. My son, who should be helping us in our golden years, has chosen to abandon us." He tagged me, adding a passive-aggressive, "I hope you're happy at the end of it." But the real kicker came from Eric. I should have known he'd get in on the drama. He shared a post that was brimming with falsehoods. Some people think that family is just about money. They don't understand that family is about love and sacrifice. I do anything for my parents, but some people just don't get that. They're too wrapped up in themselves to realize that true love is about helping those who raised you. He even threw in a disguised jab at me. I wish some people could learn what it really means to be family. I love my parents, and I'm grateful for everything they've done. That was it. That was my breaking point. I sat there, staring at the screen in disbelief. How had it gotten to this point? They turned this entire situation around, made me the villain, the selfish son who wasn't willing to support his sacrificial parents, the son who didn't appreciate all the love they gave me over the years. How could they? I had always been the one who worked hard, the one who contributed, the one who never complained. I had to swallow the fact that somehow they had convinced themselves they were in the right. And now they were telling everyone that I was the problem. I didn't want to react immediately. I took a step back, collected my thoughts, and waited for a few hours. I wanted to make sure I didn't just rush into something out of anger, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't let them get away with this. If they were going to drag my name through the M, I was going to set the record straight. So I pulled out my phone and I started typing. I opened my own Facebook account, the one I kept, for close friends and real family, and I posted a lengthy update. I wasn't interested in playing their game. I didn't want to get bogged down and petty back and forths. What I wanted to do was tell the truth. Here's what I wrote. I know I've been quiet for the past couple of days, but I can't stay quiet any longer. My family has been sharing a lot of things online about me that are simply not true. They've portrayed me as the villain, the selfish one who refuses to help my parents in their time of need. I'm here to set the record straight. I've always helped my family from the moment I could get a job. I've been the one helping with bill, paying for groceries, and supporting them in every way I could. But there comes a point where you can't keep giving without being respected. Over the years, I've watched my parents favor Eric, giving him everything, the house, the money, the attention. Meanwhile, I was expected to just keep giving without ever being considered as equal. I'm sure some of you might be reading this and thinking, well, that's just how family works, but here's the truth. Family should be a two-way street. When I found out that my parents left everything to Eric and their will, I realized how one-sided this entire relationship had been. They didn't even consider me. Not even for a moment. They've made it clear that I'm just the one they can count on when things get rough, but never the one they actually want around unless it's convenient. For them, for years, I've been the one funding their lifestyle. I've paid for vacations, chipped in for bills, and even helped out with things like the house taxes, and for what to be treated like a backup plan. I'm done. I'm not just some wallet. They can pull money from whenever they need it. I'm a human being and I deserve respect. I've earned the right to be treated like I matter, not just when they need something from me. As for Eric, it's time for him to grow up. He's 28 years old, and he's never worked a day in his life. He's never taken responsibility for anything my parents have enabled him for so long that it's no surprise he's the one they favor. But here's the thing. He's had plenty of time to get his life together, and now it's time for him to stand on his own 2 feet. To everyone who has been following this drama and supporting my parents, you need to understand that there's always 2 sides to every story. Yes, family is important, but it's also about mutual respect. I've given enough for a lifetime, and I'm not apologizing for taking a step back. This is not me turning my back on family. This is me finally choosing myself, and to my parents, I wish you the best, but I am done being your doormat. I hit post, and instantly, I felt a sense of relief for the first time in my life. I was telling the world the truth about my family, about how they had taken advantage of me for years, how they had always expected me to be the one to save them without ever once thinking about what I needed. I wasn't going to let their narrative control my life anymore. The reactions were instant. Some people who I hadn't talked to in years came forward to express their support. A few of my cousins, friends of my parents, even some distant relatives like the Post, sending me private messages, telling me they were sorry for what I had been through. It felt so freeing to finally have the truth out there, not be read under guilt trips and manipulative behavior. But then came the backlash. My parents and Eric went ballistic. Eric messaged me, "You're a traitor. You really had to air all our business out like this. You have no respect for family." Dad called me, practically yelling into the phone, "You've ruined everything. Jake, you'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off. You'll regret turning your back on your own family." But I didn't regret it, not for a second. I blocked them all. I was done, and for the first time in my life, I was free from the toxic grip that had on me. For so long as the days passed, I could feel the weight lifting off my shoulders. I was done with being treated as less than I was done with being the one who was always expected to fix everyone else's problems. And now I finally had the freedom to live my own life on my terms. So no, I don't feel bad for cutting them off. I deserve better. I still do. And from now on, I'm choosing to surround myself with people who appreciate me for who I am, not for what I can give them. It's time for me to move forward for good, and I will let me know your thoughts in the comments below.